This House is in session.
Announcements by Your Honor, the Speaker. Messages from Her Excellency the President, petitions, papers, government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first readings of bills, statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motion for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42 subsection 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
I beg to second, sir.
Question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Government business, sir.
Government business is the order of the day.
Order number 9.
Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and that the House resolve itself into Standing Finance Committee.
Beg to second.
Question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself in the Standing Finance Committee. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is in Standing Finance Committee.
Mr. Chairman, Head 27, Ministry of Tourism and International Transport, in the amount of $26,513,151.
Honourable Member for St. Michael, West Central.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I do seek your leave and permission to invite members of the ministry's team to sit with me in the well.
So granted.
Thank you.
No, they ain't your pain. This come from here, buddy. They ain't your pain. I'm sure. Honorable member, before you proceed, just let me, for the benefit of those who might be here for the first time, members of your team, just let me give a brief overview of the general rules. Honorable member, you would know you have 10 minutes opening and closing for the session. Each member that is member of parliament may speak for 3 minutes. Those members of your team, before you speak, you indicate your name and your position for the record. And you have to press on the mic and press off and make sure you speak into the mic so that the records or sound is quite clear, that the records may be accurate. Thank you, Honorable Member. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everybody. Mr. Chairman, in moving ahead, I wish to set out the broad policy allocation of Head 27, but before doing so, I would like to introduce members of the ministry's team who will be answering some questions as posed today. I first want to introduce our Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Francine Blackman, our Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ms. Nicole Taylor, Ms. Jacqueline Blackman, Chief Technical Officer, Ms. Nigel King, Director of Maritime Affairs, Ms. Nicole Alim, Project Coordinator, Project Execution Unit, National Tourism Program, Mr. Ricardo Norville, Director of Research and Planning, Ms. Andrea Mears, Financial Controller, Mr. Jens Strainhart, Chief Executive Officer of the BTMI, along with Mr. Craig Hines, Caves of Barbados Limited, Ms. Eleanor Carroll, Chief Executive Officer, Barbados Conference Services Limited, Ms. Charmaine London, Grantley Adams International Airport, Ms. Karen Walks, Director of Engineering, Civil Aviation Department, Ms. Tracy Ford Bailey, Caribbean Aircraft Handling and Caribbean International Airways, Mr. Lemuel Padmore, Needhams Point Development Limited and Needhams Point Holding Limited, Ms. Debbie Hughes, Hotel and Resorts Limited, Ms. Lana Jones and Mr. Peter Harris, Barbados Aircraft Aviation Services, Ms. Diane Sherlin, Barbados Port Inc., Mr. David Jean-Marie, and Barbados Tourism Product Authority, Ms. Lana Haywood. I may have missed one, but I will correct that, Mr. Chairman, as we proceed. Okay? So, Mr. Chairman, please be assured that as we undertake our national mission, fully conscious of how much the nation is dependent on us and the great public expectations attached to our roles. The request, therefore, in the estimates for the forthcoming financial year, personal emoluments, $9.9 million, goods and services, $8.3 million, recurrent transfer, $9.5 million, capital transfers, $4 million, and also capital expenditure, $4.5 million. Before I address the key objectives, let me start by paying tribute to the early pioneers in the industry. These include those in the private sector who sought to bring structure to their work by forming the Barbados Publicity Committee back in the 1950s. Then, Grantley Adams, now the excellent Sir Grantley Adams, as our first premier, who gave tourism its legal structure and boost by passing the Hotel Aids Act in 1956, and in 1958, created the Barbados Tourist Board, as it was known then. This means that for more than 6 decades now, tourism and Barbadians have been playing increasingly vital roles in determining our nation's economic fortunes and the livelihood of people at large. I wish to remind the country that over those many years, our tourism did not enjoy unbroken smooth sailing, but also had its fair share of rough seas too, given its dependence on the outside world. But through national cooperation and understanding, we've always been able to not only successfully manage the very difficulties, but have been able to maintain our position as one of the world's leading tourism destinations. I point this out, Mr. Chairman, as a reminder that Barbados has over time competed against the rest of the world with consistent success and distinction as a high-quality destination in tourism. Thus, the Barbados tourism brand has stood out strong and distinctive in the midst of ongoing challenges in the international marketplace. That is because Barbados tourism officials have time after time made the necessary coping adjustments to safeguard our strong appeal and competitiveness. However, we should never play down or overlook the most crucial element in our hospitality culture, the people of Barbados. But let us never take for granted our highly precious human element of seeming virtual, instinctive, and automatic inclination to be hospitable. We in the tourism sector are quite aware of the periodic attempts to undermine the viability of tourism as a serious and dependable area of economic activity by dismissing it as being very fragile. But given the very real and still impacting international issues engulfing the whole interconnected environment, it is difficult to select areas of economic life that can said to be truly immune to such unprecedented set of circumstances. For while admittedly, tourism does carry its share of fragility, what critics fail to acknowledge is how rapidly tourism can respond to timely and correct stimuli for marketing, transportation, and other elements. Mr. Chairman, while acknowledging the officials in the BHTA and the Ministry of Tourism International and Transport are acknowledging through statistical evidence that our tourism is recovering, it is to be remembered that like many other ailing patients, recovery still must be treated with the utmost care and attention to realize the best possible outcome. Accordingly, I've put the Board of Directors of the BTMI on notice that they will be held accountable for improved monthly marketing performance and the attendant strategies that must be executed to realize the complete recovery and growth of the sector. I give this House the assurance that I'm personally reviewing the performance of each market. These same high standards are being applied to the Grantley Adams International Airport, the Barbados Port Inc., and all other entities falling under this ministry. Mr. Chairman, it is no secret that Barbados is anxiously waiting for a surge in the economy. Tourism has the required components to trigger increased activity, and when all is said and done, one can only realistically conclude that tourism offers the brightest hope for the economy. 14 key objectives will guide the ministry's plan for the next financial year, along with other tactical goals. Those key objectives are, in part, protect and grow airlift and to operationalize air services agreement and reinvest in airline partnerships. Operationalize the Civil Aviation Authority, the regulatory authority for the aviation sector, including air transport in compliance with the Civil Aviation Act and global standards, pursuing capacity building initiatives and technical assistance support to transform that sector. Mr. Chairman, I take this opportunity to assure the public of Barbados and the international community that extensive remedial actions have been taken to minimize the possibility of a recurrence of the incident between February 14th and 15th, which saw the temporary closure of the runway at sunset because of the defective runway lights. Let me take this opportunity to once again thank the staff at the Grantley Adams International Airport, especially the electrical teams, air traffic controllers, airlines, hotels, and the Department of Civil Aviation, and in particular, the Chief Executive Officer of the Grantley Adams International Airport for the extraordinary work in minimizing disruptions in the operations of Grantley Adams International Airport. It is interesting to note that a similar lightning fall occurred a few days ago at John F. Kennedy Airport in New York, which also disrupted operations there. But I'm glad to say that in both events, there was no injury or mishap to any aircraft or person. Continuing with the objectives, Mr. Chairman, we are going to develop a framework for the collection of data and reporting to assist with strategic decision-making. We're going to upgrade equipment for the Air Navigation Services Department to allow Barbados to modernize its infrastructure and maintain its safety record. We are going to implement a management information system to improve regulation, data collection, and the administration of accommodation and licensing. We are going to be piloting the new tourist accommodation built for all types of accommodation and strengthening of quality assurance. On light We're also going to undertake a competitive analysis of Barbados' accommodation sector, attractions, and cruise against some of our key competitors. We are going to improve the core elements of the Barbados tourism brand through product assessment audits. We are going to audit, execute, and continue to maintain the audit of ship registry with a view to developing a new model to promote its expansion and to generate increased revenue. The passing of the suite of maritime laws will also help us in building human capacity for shore-based and seagoing maritime jobs. The expansion of berth 6, consisting of 1,200 feet at the Barbados Port, Inc., in accordance with their business plan, the refurbishment of the Millie Eiffel Fish Market at Weston, the refurbishment of that fish market, in addition to the boat hollow and repair facility for vessels going to the dry dock, new stevedoring arrangements designed to lower the cost of goods, to mention some of the projects to be undertaken. We intend to complete the sale of the Savannah Hotel and indeed the Blue Horizon property as we transition there. We are going to commence the process of transitioning the BTMI to a public-private partnership. Last September, Barbados relaxed all COVID-19 protocols. We did so after other competitive markets, following our own deliberate judgment on conditions in Barbados. Our public health considerations have always been a beacon that has protected this country from and during health crises. When the decision was taken to end the COVID-19 protocols, we were aware that our tourism industry had declined compared to recent years. I am happy to report the realization of the expected recovery of arrivals in the sector. In calendar year 2022, we ended with a recovery of 65% compared to 2018 and 62% compared to 2019. In December 2022, arrivals from the UK, one of our major source markets, were almost equal to December 2018. Arrivals for December 2022 were 26,080 compared to 26,262. Total arrivals for January 2023 stood at 59,797 compared to 65,970 for 2018, a 91% recovery for the comparative period. For 2019, arrivals for January were 69,000, a recovery rate of 86% to January 2023. The UK market recorded 25,654 arrivals for January, compared to 23,230 the same period for 2018, which constitutes a 10% growth for January. The recovery rate compared to 2019 is now at 93%. The US market recorded 13,330 arrivals in January 2023, and when compared to 2018, this represents a recovery of 82% and 75% compared to 2019. The Canadian market recorded arrivals of 10,022 in January 23, compared to 12,316 in 2018, which again represents a recovery of 81% compared to 2019 and a growth of half of 1%. While we have improved monthly performance from the UK market, it must be known that greater stimulation is needed and required in the United States and Canadian markets. Despite the reduction in airlift within the Caribbean, arrivals for January 23 totaled 5,629. In January 2018, arrivals totaled 7,269, which represents a recovery rate of 77%. In 2019, 6,947 arrivals were recorded for January, constituting a recovery of 81% when compared to 2023. January 2023, recovery was achieved despite the significant reduction in LIAC flights. Another pleasing note, Mr. Chairman, is a reported improvement in occupancies across all accommodation sectors. In having discussions with owners, operators of attractions and food and beverage suppliers, retail shops, taxi, watercraft, and small business persons have established that they too are enjoying the improvement in the performance of the overall tourism sector. I wish to advise, Mr. Chairman, that as a deliberate policy, the ministry is demanding a far greater use of data compilation and analysis in determining the true performance and emerging trends in the accommodation sector. This approach is absolutely necessary for the BTMI to get accurate and meaningful information on the performance of the accommodation sector, the pace of performance, and the timely detection and analysis of developments to allow for a swift and proactive response to them. The BTMI is responsible for marketing of Barbados as a national destination, not any one exclusive segment of the market. We need the information from the accommodation sector in order to assist with the marketing of the destination. In plain language, the BTMI cannot market to a wall. Based on the projections from Forward Keys, the data analytics company contracted by the BTMI, airline bookings for summer period May to October 2023, as at February 5th, stood at 34,368. When compared to 2019, this represents a growth of 2%. For the same comparative period in 2022, bookings were 26,674, a year-on-year increase of 29% in summer airline bookings. That is tickets sold, and that is data from IATA. The pacing reports confirm that we are trending in the right direction for summer 2023. However, greater effort is necessary to increase arrivals during the summer. A number of initiatives designed to assist with the summer campaign include the hosting of CHT Marketplace in Barbados in May with an anticipated 1,200 persons in attendance, including media and counterpart ministers who will also be on island for the second CTO meeting. In June, Barbados will host more than 1,000 persons through an initiative by the U.S. market which targeted Black prestigious universities for alumni by alumni. I'm indeed pleased to announce that the hugely popular Love Island, a British television program, will be on island in June to commence filming for 6 to 8 weeks with more than 360 cast and crew. The publicity of this event and the broadcast of the television series will give Barbados, the destination, exposure to more than 5 million direct and over 20 million streaming viewers in the United Kingdom alone. The very popular annual Sol Rally remains on our calendar of events, and of course, Cropover will play its part. Coming August through September, the Caribbean Premier League, known as CPL, will be played in Barbados. Barbados will also welcome FinTech for another year with an estimated 1,000 persons visiting. The BTMI will be concluding a 5-year strategic marketing plan in the new financial year, and I have to inform members that the rotation of BTMI staff in markets will be actualized shortly. The ministry will be establishing a country presence in new and emerging markets to increase arrivals from those markets and to maximize our marketing efforts there. I'm pleased to announce that an increased presence will be felt in France to further build out the European market. Latin and South America constitutes a major potential source for leisure and business travel. The population, the wealth, and travel trends in that general area have led us to reposition our approach and to develop those markets with the key objectives of increasing arrivals, having a market presence, and building air links from that geographic region. A director, along with a senior business development officer and business development officers, will be posted in Panama to service that market from strategic locations in Brazil and Argentina. We are also going to have an increased presence in Ireland, and the Arabian market will be coordinated out of the UAE diplomatic mission, with a director of emerging markets being assigned to support the staff there. Mr. Chairman, in summary, the BTMI will build on Barbados's brand in all markets, develop new and emerging markets with thorough emphasis on more aggressive marketing strategies. The board and management of the BTMI will be responsible for these deliverables. The ministry will continue to improve its service delivery, enhance its human capital and training, and provide leadership necessary for the development of Barbados's tourism industry. Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Head 27 stamper. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Before the honorable members proceed, just let me give you a reminder. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the process moving forward from here. Each member is allowed 3 questions. You can speak for 3 minutes. And when you pose your question, you have 3 supplementary questions, but they must be connected, and you can speak for 3 minutes. Just indicate if you so desire to speak, you know the usual procedure with your tag and you would have to catch the chairman's eye as well. Thank you. Honorable member for St. James Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Minister, it is said that brevity is the soul of wit and tediousness its limbs and outward flourishes, so I will be brief. I feel as senior minister with responsibility for oversight of your sector that I should begin by congratulating your team on the significant rate of recovery which has been demonstrated so ably by the statistical data that you've put before this honorable House. I feel also, sir, that it would be useful if I used this opportunity not to cross-examine you, but to give you an opportunity to elucidate further on some key areas of significant interest to the people of Barbados. Your key objective, I think number 1, I believe, was the thrust to protect and grow airlift. I wonder whether you would be willing to elaborate a little bit on that effort, especially as it relates to connectivity, not just airlift, but connectivity out of the eastern seaboard of the United States of America. For many Barbadians, there is a concern that getting into the U.S. and getting out of the U.S. is becoming an increasingly difficult experience because the planes are full and not as numerically large an amount as we had previously been accustomed to. I know that you are doing significant work to rectify that situation. I feel that the House, and by extension the country, should benefit from your opportunity to elaborate thereon.
Thank you, Senior Minister. In respect of the Eastern Seaboard, we currently have United Airlines coming out of the tri-state region, out of Newark. We are going into discussions with United and other carriers because we recognize there's an opportunity for us to drive greater traffic out of that market, which would certainly help lift the tri-state area. In respect of the airlift situation into Barbados, particularly from Miami, we have witnessed, it is no secret in Barbados, that is very difficult to get a seat on American Airlines flight, either leaving Barbados or coming into Barbados from Miami. The load factors there have been close to more than 95%. In fact, I will risk the hazard a guess it's probably more than 98%. And therefore, that carrier has been doing very well on that market. What we are planning to do is that we are going to meet with the officials at American Airlines to have a discussion. There's a planned visit where we intend to encourage American Airlines to build out additional capacity on that route. It has been a very viable and very good route for them. And we believe that that will help to strengthen connectivity. As you are aware, American Airlines uses the Miami area as a hub. And as a result of that, you have a lot of traffic coming directed into Miami than out of Miami. So we are going to meet with the representatives of American Airlines to pursue that strategy. In respect of other airlift measures, currently we are in negotiations with several airlines. We have to, of course, increase airlift into Barbados because that is one sure way of driving our numbers. So we are engaging in dialogue with a number of US-based carriers I can also tell you, senior ministers and members of the House, that we are also looking to other flagship carriers to see how best we can improve airlift from other markets within the United States. We are looking, and negotiations are currently ongoing as I speak to you in respect of two geographic regions, and we're looking, one will be a potentially new air carrier coming to Barbados, and the other one will be a carrier that was known to Barbados for some time. I'm confident that those negotiations will go a long way. But what I believe is the solution for us is to ensure we can get those seasonal carriers from our US-based markets to continue to service Barbados more, rather than on a seasonal basis, to come here more frequently, potentially on a year-round basis. So we're working to accomplish that, and I believe that the negotiations that we're in discussions with will certainly go a long way. I don't want to utilize more than, but there's also initiatives in the Canadian market. I can come back to that.
Certainly, thank you. And I would wish to quiz you a little bit in similar vein, to give you an opportunity to elaborate on the question of the cruise sector. The data, as you well know, will reflect that on any given year, 3 to 4 times the population of Barbados will visit these shores via cruises. And obviously that is a short-term experience, but a significant boon to the economy. The statistical data also reflects that there is a desirability on the part of visitors to have the experience of a northern landing. And that does make sense strategically, in my judgment, because the northern product of the country will have an opportunity to be developed and diversified, and we get the benefit of some spatial balance, everybody not being clustered in and around the Bridgetown area. What are the thoughts of your ministry with respect to the question of a northern facility so that we can facilitate cruise landings in the north of Barbados?
Thank you very much, Senior Minister. I will also invite the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Port in to respond. But what I can also tell you, that I had the opportunity on 2 occasions since I assumed responsibility for tourism to meet with the cruise executives. On the first occasion, we met because it was necessary as a new minister to maintain good and positive relations, but also to be in their face, encouraging them to drive additional business to Barbados. We all know that the challenge with Barbados, as some of them put it, is because we're in a southern location geographically, that sometimes the time to turn around the ship based on the itinerary sometimes causes them a bit of a challenge. But one thing I got out of them is that Barbados is still a very positive destination and is highly rated by their passengers. Indeed, the guest satisfaction scores indicate such. What we're working with them do is to garner additional information through consumer trends. We have received one such document from the cruise industry. We are working to strategize how best we can further build out. There's an opportunity for us, and I believe in it, that during the summer period where we can have smaller cruise ships, because as we all know, the larger ones reposition and go to the Mediterranean. But there is scope for a number of smaller cruise vessels to come to Barbados during that period. And what we're building out, certainly in Speightstown and other areas where we're going to establish some moorings, which the CEO will speak to, says that we believe that we're on the right strategy, and having dialogue with those cruise executives, they're to support it. Obviously, it will not happen overnight. It has to be a work in progress. Things do take time to develop, just like a new emerging market. But I'm confident about the future of cruise, especially for the winter. And let me also say, as one senior executive, in fact, one of the chief executive officers of a cruise company told me on my last visit, Barbados isn't going anywhere. It's highly rated, and the regional, and it will be on their program for a long time. What I will do is, to your specific question, I will ask the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Port Inc., Mr. David Jomry, to tell you a bit of what we've done in Speightstown and plans for the northern sector, northern portion of Barbados. Jomry?
Thank you, Minister. As you're aware, I believe Speightstown Jetty has been refurbished and is in good order. And
Sir,
off Speightstown.
before you proceed, please give your name and your position for the records.
Okay. My name is David Jean-Marie. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Barbados Port Inc. We refurbished the Speightstown Jetty. A significant expenditure. It's quite a beautiful site. And we are positioning 2 moorings off that jetty to be able to tie up smaller cruise vessels. The vessels will clear in Bridgetown, and then they would sail to Speightstown and tend their passengers via the jetty to the north of the country. We also have 4 mooring points on the west coast for super yachts already in position. So that's what we're doing in terms of being able to accommodate smaller cruise vessels and super yachts in the north of the country.
Mr. Chairman, and just to reemphasize and the point about the activities being undertaken, I think it's incumbent upon me to let the Honourable Chamber know that history will be created in Barbados on March the 16th. The P&O cruise ship, the Arvia, will be christened in Barbados. It will be done so in the constituency of St. Peter. And I believe that invitations are on the way for all honourable members. It is going to be on Thursday, which I know is our cabinet day. But this is the first time, and the authorities have indicated to me that this is the first time that a cruise ship will be christened in the Caribbean. And certainly they believe it's the first time that a cruise ship will be christened outside of their major ports. That event will also attract a number of distinguished persons visiting Barbados. It will also have the opportunity to give the Barbados brand, and particularly the cruise segment, a wonderful opportunity to showcase Barbados. You would not, and Barbados, and certainly BTMI, would not ever be able to pay for the exposure that the P&O of operators in Carnival that they have planned for the event. We also intend to piggyback, as they say, on that extraordinary event in Barbados to assist us again, not only with cruise, but tourism of our destination. It will be a wonderful evening, I'm told. The P&O team, they will be on island to execute all the arrangements, and that you will have a very large vessel just on the coastline of Speightstown with a wonderful ceremony. It says a lot. I can also tell members, I wasn't here, I had to be traveling on duty in respect of ministry's business. But when the RV was here about 3 Thursdays ago, I believe it was Thursday, you could not get a taxi out of the Bridgetown port because the vessel brought, I'm told, close to 10,000 persons to the shores. So we have been doing well in that respect. The cruise season is recovering, and I believe that we have great opportunities there. And there are some other initiatives that we're working on that will also be part of our strategic plan as we seek to build out the cruise business in Barbados. Thank you.
Final question from me, Minister. Takes you to another market, which I don't think you mentioned, but I believe that I should give you the opportunity or the encouragement to elaborate on it. Obviously, the government has done a lot of work in terms of beginning the process of building relationships with the continent of Africa. It goes beyond just the heads of governments meeting. It has had tangible benefits insofar as business is concerned. Thus far, we had a major African and Caribbean Investment Conference taking place right here in Barbados last year. Obviously, the challenge is connectivity again, and I want to give you the opportunity to share any thoughts or progress reports that might be available with respect to this burning issue of how we let Barbadians get closer to Africa and Africans in turn become closer to Barbados.
Thank you, Senior Minister. We have, and in fact, less than 2 weeks ago, we were involved in a meeting with an airline out of Africa. The good thing is that the ministry over the years have had a number of air services agreements in place. We are moving to update some of those air services agreements. But those air services agreements give us an opportunity to expedite travel between Africa and Barbados and other jurisdictions. So we are in discussion with one airline. I don't want to volunteer the name at this point because we are still in negotiations and I have to respect that process. But it is a major airline out of Nigeria that we're in discussions with. We are also in discussions with Rwanda Air with a view, obviously, to having a similar schedule where they can leave Africa, come into the Barbados, and then we're looking to see how best we can strategize and move air traffic from here into mainland United States. Those discussions are ongoing. We're also in discussion with other airlines who've approached us with a view to build additional air services and traffic with destinations. But this is critical because we believe that Barbados can become the hub. We have the requirements, and therefore we are going to be moving with alacrity to secure additional air links and travel and agreements with our brothers and sisters in Africa, on the African continent, to ensure that we build not only arrivals, but the opportunity for the movement of cargo, which is a really exciting opportunity, because if we can move cargo between Barbados, Africa, and then into United States or even the UK, I think that would become a very lucrative opportunity for not only the Grant Adams International Airport, not only the airline concern, but it would create jobs in the logistics hub in Barbados. And I believe that is one of the major pillars that we're going to continue to work on. So as discussions conclude, we are going to be in a position to make formal announcements. Forgive me if I do not call the names, but as you would respect, because we are in negotiations, I cannot obviously breach negotiators' trust and refer to names. But I'm saying all that to say that even recently, last year, we are looking obviously to new and emerging markets. The Permanent Secretary and I, along with other members of the team, would have been to Saudi Arabia, where we signed air services with Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Qatar, we are going there shortly to sign off on another air services agreement. But having the air services agreement also allow us now to have more detailed and in-depth discussions with what we call some of the flagship carriers who potentially we believe we can get to Barbados. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First, Minister, let me join with the Senior Minister who spoke before me and congratulate you on your team for the tremendous job you have done in leading the way for the rebound that tourism has experienced. In fact, the central bank governor was very, very clear that the 10% growth that we were able to experience over the last year was led primarily by tourism and the rebound of tourism. And I remember days when growth in Barbados was 1% and below. So for us to see double-digit growth in Barbados is a tremendous feat and led by tourism. Of course, seconded by construction, which is also making a tremendous contribution to growth. Over my first question relates first and of course foremost to where my heart lies, in the constituency of Christchurch West. And you did mention the repurposing of Blue Horizon, but there are two hotels that are controlled by government corporations, Savannah and Blue Horizon. And I wonder if you could give the country some more information as to what your plans are for both of those hotels, Savannah and Blue Horizon, and what could we anticipate? As you know, we had a town hall of Blue Horizon when they had an intention to redevelop it, and the people in the surrounding area are very concerned about shadowing and how it would affect their particular properties and so on. So if you could elaborate as to what plans you have for Blue Horizon and then also for Savannah. Thank you.
Thank you, Senior Minister. Let me start with the Savannah Hotel. Again, in your constituency. The Savannah Hotel, when I joined the ministry, I was earmarked for disposal by way of a sale. We are having negotiations. What we have to do is to ensure that the valuations and all the other attendant issues are dealt with. The board is at an advanced stage. We believe that HR will conclude that arrangement in the forthcoming financial year. It is meant not only for as a sale, but it's also meant to give whoever the buyer shall be an opportunity to further expand the hotel's footprint, but more importantly, to add to the experience as we know it, the Barbados brand experience. And therefore, we believe that that will conclude I don't want to say within the first half of the financial year, but internally, that's my goal. We are pushing to get that all concluded. And like I said, we believe we can get that done. In respect of Blue Horizon, there was a tendering process. I've asked for a further review so that I can understand the details. You would appreciate I'm only on the job for about 3 months and I've had to digest a lot of stuff. But what we can tell you is that whatever happens there, it will remain as a hotel because we need the additional capacity. I must say that the hotel on its own is performing well, and I believe that we can have a great opportunity there as well. What I would like to do is we have the chairman of Hotel and Resorts Limited with us, Mr. Harris, and perhaps Mr. R. Harris can add to what I've already said. Mr. Harris?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Harris. I'm the chairman of Hotels and Resorts Limited. I've been the chairman for the last, I think, 6 months. We are currently following the guidance of the shareholder to divest both hotels. Let's start with Savannah. We've had a valuation exercise completed, I think, this week, and we shall start discussions with the ministry to confirm the way forward on disposing Savannah. The additional lands next to Savannah, which is the police station, we are in the process of swapping the old police station with the new police station lands. That process also should be completed within the next year, because I think the title needs to be confirmed, and they have some issues on the title of the land. The hotel is now leased by the Weatherhead Group or the Sun Group. During COVID, he had spent quite a bit of money on renovations, and as a result, there was no lease payment. But since then, we have restarted the lease payments, and for the last 3-4 months, we have increased his monthly lease payments. We haven't reached the market rates yet, but we're getting there. Hopefully, we'll conclude the sale before then. On Blue Horizon, we have been directed to seek the best market value for the hotel, and we are in the process of having the previous agreement, which was entered into under the previous administration. We're trying to find a way to bring that to an end, and we're taking legal advice on how to bring that to an end, and then have a valuation done on the hotel to seek the best possible return for the hotel, and also someone who is going to maintain the hotel and keep it going as a going concern, as a hotel, and not convert it into something else. We're also in the process of trying to acquire the beachfront land, which we hope to conclude in the next few months. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Minister. Clearly, I look forward to those two because those will add and make, in fact, 4 new hotels that would be going up on that coast. So if you add, it would be Blue Horizon, Margaritaville, which is next to Kentucky, Indigo, which has already started, and then Savannah. So the great constituency of Christchurch West and its constituents look forward to all of these new developments on that stretch. You mentioned capacity, and I'm going into my second question now, Mr. Chairman. And capacity, as you know, I believe there are about 6,000 hotel rooms on island are accessible. But I do recognize the great rise of Airbnb and HomeAway, VRBO, and all of those. And I think I heard someone say that there may even be more rooms in that kind of market than in hotel rooms. Do you have any statistics about that, and what work are you doing to be able to enhance that? Because that is also an important part of the market. And even although somebody who comes to our shores to go to an Airbnb and not a hotel may not have the same kind of direct revenue to the government, but certainly that person still has to eat, drink, go partying, go to dinner, so on. In fact, I think a lot of that is contributing to your airlift problems, because the airlift numbers versus the numbers of hotel rooms don't add up. So it means that a lot of people are coming and going to non-traditional accommodations like villas, Airbnbs, and so on and so forth. Can you elaborate on any information you have on that sector of the market and any plans for that sector of the market?
Yes, thank you, Senior Minister. I will discuss some, but then I will ask Ms. Lana Harewood, who is the head of product, to join in the discussion as well. Respect to capacity, and it's a good question. When I joined the ministry, I asked for a couple of analyses to be done. And the reason why I did that, because I also recognize that when I looked at the numbers, arrival numbers into Barbados, and then I hear sometimes other accommodation sectors complaining that occupancy is not up. But then when I go into the villa market as an accommodation segment, I see the numbers, and I know people in that sector very well, so I have conversations with them often. But when I look at the occupancies and how well they're doing there, and then persons who own villas as well, who come to Barbados and stay for a period, it did raise that question in my mind. And therefore, the ministry set out to have a capacity report to see where we are. That report should be on my desk shortly, which will then give us an opportunity to review the capacity by market type, by accommodation type. We are going to have a new accommodation bill because we cannot allow tourist accommodation to go unregulated in this country. We have to ensure that the equivalents of an Airbnb and those are properly regulated. And we have to do so because there are product quality issues. We have to ensure that we continue to strengthen our quality assurance. And we also have to protect the Barbados brand and its reputation. And therefore, there will be a new tourist accommodation bill, which we are going to pilot through Parliament shortly. And that bill will also help us. The interesting thing about that, the drive that we're focusing on there, is that it will also help to shore up some missing accommodation levies. So the Ministry of Finance will have some other entities that are headed to have gone unregulated, regulated, and licensed. And that's what the tourist accommodation bill. But I'm sure Lana, as head of product here with us, will also speak to that. I believe that there's an opportunity for Barbados to continue to grow. The pace at which we are seeing investments in villas. I've told recently that on the books for one establishment is in excess of $100 million in construction works for villas. And then there's several others, I'm told, that are moving in that direction. Certainly those TDAA applications that we sign off on indicate to me that there is a significant drive for capital expenditure in Barbados by way of construction, new villas and corresponding tourism entities. But I will pause here and ask Ms. Lana Harewood, head of the BTI product, to come in here. Ms. Harewood.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, everyone. I'm Lana Harewood from the Barbados Tourism Product Authority, the product quality unit that licenses the accommodation sector. I do agree with you, Minister, that we have been seeing a tremendous increase in that market. We call them the vacation rental sector. And currently, the registered properties within that sector account for 1,258 properties, which tally 3,766 bedrooms. As the Minister mentioned, we are in the process of proposing new tourist accommodation bill, which will incorporate all types of tourism accommodation. So we're looking definitely to bring them in to regulate them. And it is critical, as the Minister stated, we're having some quality assurance issues. We need to have them in to ensure that they meet the minimum standards and the national standards in going forward. So definitely, we're working towards that.
Thank you very much, Minister. Ma'am, I do appreciate it, but I do know that you said 3,700 registered. So that begs the question that you and I probably know that there are another couple thousand maybe unregistered. And hence, I look forward to seeing the legislation because I do appreciate the necessity to be able to buttress and maintain the brand of Barbados and not have our standards drop. So thank you for that, and I appreciate that. And I must say, I am seeing the growth because I see people in communities that otherwise you would not normally see them walking, getting the ZRs, whatever it may be. And to me, that obviously tells me, and sometimes I question them, and they do say yes, they're at Airbnb or VRBO or whatever, and so on. So thank you. My final question, Mr. Chairman, has to do with Berth 6, which you mentioned, Minister. And I appreciate that. Obviously, we need Berth 6 because I know that many times you may have a cruise ship in berth, you have to move it out because it's a competition between cruise ship and cargo and things like that. And I was wondering, because I believe you started the Berth 6, what date do you anticipate completion? At what cost are you doing Berth 6? And what tremendous benefits you anticipate the country will derive from having Berth 6 available to us at the port?
Thank you, Senior Minister. Berth 6, the construction of Berth 6 commenced in January of this year, and we are going to conclude that construction in July of 2024, July next year. Construction is pacing well. We don't have any issues. It is a project, $108 million there. And like I said, it's progressing well, and we believe that not only will it help with the cargo, because one of the challenges that we have is when cruise ships are in Barbados, cargo ships have to sit outside the bay. And what that does sometimes is to incur costs. And sometimes the impatience of a captain could cause the ship to bypass, the cargo ship to bypass Barbados, and then you have to do transshipment, which is increased costs. So mindful of that situation, the board of the Barbados Port Inc. took that decision in accordance with government to pursue that strategy. So that will have an opportunity for us to have additional 2 ships, cargo ships, dedicated to that area, which would then free up the space that would have otherwise been dedicated to cruise and cargo. So we will have a cruise. There are also works in the pipeline. We are exploring an opportunity where we can build out an additional cruise pier. That's currently under discussion, but we believe that could be a wonderful opportunity and where we can perhaps have some partnerships in order to build out that facility. In addition to the activities of Berth 6, and I will ask the CEO of the Barbados Port Inc. to expand a little bit to tell you about the clearing facility there, about the logistics hub that we're going to have there. So, Mr. John Marie, please expand.
Thank you, Minister. As Minister said, Berth 6 is being constructed at a cost of $108 million. That was a renegotiated contract. We've already paid $20 million in piles and other materials. The project has commenced, as Minister said, on the 16th of January to conclude in 2024 July. This will see the construction of 366 meters length berth, a drop of 13 meters to accommodate larger cargo vessels and cruise vessels if there's a spillover, as well as pave additional 10 acres of container space for the increased traffic that we expect. As Minister also indicated, there's that conflict between cargo and cruise, and oftentimes cargo vessels have to remain outside and await the berth at nights, which increases the cost of doing business in Barbados, overtime costs, demurrage, and so on. In addition to this, we say that part of the pre-construction works include relocation of coral. We have to remove coral, 3,200 heads of coral. We move to the north of the port, as well as to prepare a water quality monitoring plan prior to dredging and driving of piles and so on. We will also be acquiring 2 post-Panamax gantry cranes, as well as several bits of straddle carriers in order to handle the traffic, increased traffic that we expect. This equipment should be ordered via tender by the middle of 2023.
What I would like to do, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, is to perhaps ask the Chief Executive Officer to obviously take the chamber and the country through some of the projects just briefly. We have the Shallow Draft project, the capital works that we're doing there, the expenditure involved, the fact that that's creating and adding to construction jobs. So, Mr. Jorma, you may just want to take us through that quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Barbados Port Inc. has been working towards a dual goal of port transformation and national development. Much of our efforts are being concentrated on the build-out of infrastructure works under our Master Plan 2020 to 2030, as well as initiatives detailed in our Business Plan 2021 to 2026. The projects in our Master Plan have a projected cost of $1 billion. I'll just go through 5 of them. I've already given details on Berth 6. We've also have approval for building out a container freight station and a central container examination facility. This is a $40 million project. We would relocate this to the fence of the port, the SPS fence, and remove the sheds that are in the way of traffic right now. The central examination facility would be a facility that would enable containers to be inspected prior to leaving the port. So rather than have customs officers and other agencies traveling around the country, we will have all that inspection done at the port, and that should also result in a reduction in costs and in efficiency, as well as our security. Because once containers leave the port, it's difficult to manage them out there. That's a $40 million project. We're looking at the business model to effect that project, because we want that to be a PPP with the private sector leading. With respect to the aggregate berth, I think we're all aware that we are out of sand. Sand reserves have been depleted, and we've been working with an engineering team and C.O. Williams Construction to create land for storage of imported aggregate and sand, establish a plant on the site for production of aggregate in different sizes for the local and export markets, and provide continuous supply of sand for the local market. The supply from local quarries haven't been exhausted. We have the draft environmental impact report. It's a 621-page document. It's being reviewed by port management, and we expect to submit it to the Town and Country Planning Department by the end of this month. That project is an $18 million project, 80, and again, that will be a PPP with private sector interests and the port. We're hopeful that once permission is granted by mid-year, that we can commence that project. The Shallow Draft Marina project was mentioned by the minister. If one travels along the Mighty Granite Highway, one will see structures going up, buildings. That project started in February 2022 and is scheduled for completion in February 2024. That's a $40 million project. It's about 60% complete, and it will see an additional 70 berths for small yachts and other marine craft, a fuel facility, a mini mart, a fish and farmers market, and storage facilities rather than what we have now, these bits of containers all over the place. This is a critical and important project. This project will also we'll also build out wave attenuation structures to manage the waves that come into that area and create havoc at certain times of year. Minister also mentioned the boat repair facility, where sand is now being stored. Once we build out the aggregate berth and reclaim land to the north of the flour mill, we will then free up that land for a boat repair facility. 4.5 acres of land has been allocated to that facility. The facility will not only revive the local boat building and repair sector, but will save costs as boat owners will be able to service their craft in Barbados and not have them go elsewhere to be dry docked. New opportunities for employment and training will emerge, and we have already held preliminary discussions with the Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute of Technology on providing the requisite training needed to support the planned operations of the facility. That's a concession already awarded. We're just going through the planning process also. Those are 5 projects, the main projects that are part of our Port Master Plan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, and also CEO. Clearly, not only are you driving growth in your return of the visitors, but you're also driving growth in your capital projects as well. And I look forward to seeing the application for the berth for aggregate and sand as it comes before the new, not town planning anymore, planning and development. Planning and development is the new name of the department. I thank you. I have a couple others, but I'll let the others go and I'll come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael South.
Thank you very much, sir. Again, like all the members who spoke before me, congratulations to the minister and to his team, and to the minister who preceded you as well for the work that she would have done to get us to this point. Of course, tourism for us, sir, is a major money earner. We know this. Tourism is directly and indirectly related to how most of us live or can live in this country. Minister, you began by putting the BTMI on notice. In your opening remarks, you said BTMI is on notice, I think, for growth. We understand that given COVID and given the way the world has changed, that there obviously needs to be some freshness brought to our tourism product. In fact, even before COVID, there were comments that perhaps our tourism product was bordering on getting tired and that we needed a new product. There was also the view held by some that our tourists, repeat though they are getting older, and that we needed now to find and attract a new tourist, a younger tourist perhaps. And there's also a view held by some that the idea that people would leave their country only for sea and sand is now changed, because back in the day people would be working hard as part of some factory and needed a break. Now many people are sitting in front of a computer all day. The nature of work has changed, and the nature of what people expect when they come to a country like Barbados has also changed. And so that the question that I have for you, sir, but mostly for the BTMI, is what are we doing to be able to refresh our brand, to attract our new tourists, and considering that there's a new head of the organization, a new CEO, what is his vision to be able to lead us into the future?
Thank you, Honourable Member. I will also invite the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., Mr. Yang Strainhard, to address the matter. But before I do so, In respect of the product, there are several dimensions to the product. There's issue of product quality. There's also issue of the attractions. As I indicated in my opening remarks, there are a number of studies that I've requested, competitively so. One of those had to do with the whole issue of attractions. I'm awaiting that. We have to get that report completed. And once we have that report completed, we will also be able to see what are the consumer trends and what is driving or not driving attractions in the direction. I do agree with you that Barbados has had an awesome record in repeat visitors. I think we probably have one of the highest. I recall when I welcomed the Arvia cruise ship at the Bridgetown, at the Barbados port, that there was a guests there who had been coming to Barbados for 25 years. And they were on the Arvia when it came to Barbados across the Atlantic to make its inaugural call. That market, repeat visitors, has done us proud, done us very well. But what it has also done, it has caused us to allow their children and their grandchildren to come to Barbados, to fall in love with Barbados, and to have vacation and have Barbados as one of their vacation stops on their annual calendar. So the transition has worked well for us, and long may that last. In respect of product quality, yes, there are a couple of issues that we have to address in terms of the hotel plan. What is happening now is that we have some entities that have invested, and very shortly you will hear of other hotel entities that are going to make a substantial investment in Barbados. Of course, the Prime Minister will be making some of those announcements. But what I can tell you is that from my vantage point, and I have been in discussions with the head of all accommodation sectors, including the intimate hotels of Barbados, encouraging them to obviously reinvest and reposition their hotels in order to attract additional business. I will pause. You're right on the Sand and Sea destination. We have a number of persons who not come here. They stay at locations away from the beach. We also have the welcome stamp that has been a wonderful addition that has driven a lot of business to Barbados. We have an officer dedicated to the welcome stand at the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., and we will continue to build on that as part of our overall marketing efforts of Barbados. But I shall pause and ask the Chief Executive Officer to speak. Mr. Trainhard.
Thank you, Minister. With your permission, Chairman, Minister Humphrey, thank you for your question. I personally believe that Barbados has a tremendous potential in being positioned as a leader when it comes to tourism and sustainability.
Thank you, sir. Just formally introduce yourself, your name and your position. Thank you. Okay. For our records.
My name is Jens Trainhardt, CEO of the BTMI. Thank you again for the question. Barbados has tremendous potential in being positioned as a leader in tourism globally. And I think as it relates to the product that it offers, the diversity and the people here, this is something that people are looking for traveling post-pandemic. The Honourable Minister just mentioned that a positioning just for beaches is not enough anymore, so we need to really broaden the scope and with that reduce seasonality and make Barbados known to the world. There are various initiatives that we can leverage to do that. On one hand, having guests and residents share their experiences on island via social media that builds a content cloud. On the other hand, leveraging orange economy and film, collaborative campaigns with the private sector, and also leveraging Bajan celebrities. However, coming out of the pandemic, sustainability needs to be a core part of our strategy, and with that, creating a resilient destination, because I think we can all be sure that this won't be the last crisis situation. So I think we need to make sure that we are prepared for any new situations in being resilient.
As such, we need to make sure that we drive economic impact. Economic impact to really create value for the residents and all Barbadians. That can be done by increasing on-island spending, increasing lengths of stay, increasing inclusive growth, and I will talk more about that in a second, but really making sure that tourism does not benefit just a few, but really all Barbadians. And then lastly, increasing government revenues to obviously fund the infrastructure behind that. By creating consumer demand, we're able then to also attract more airlift because airlines fly due to economic reasons, and if there's no demand, they will not fly here. And not having other factors that play in our favor, we need to make sure that really people want to come here and want to experience that. So on the other hand, on the cruise side, we're looking to move from cruise calls to more home porting calls. And that's obviously a big opportunity to increase cruise passenger spending on island. By creating this consumer demand, we see that there's a lot of opportunities to create new products and new services. Having said though, Barbados is blessed with having a lot of products and services already here that is very hard for other destinations to build, very quickly. I'm talking about sports, from cricket to golf to surfing to sailing to horse riding to even motorsport. Events and festivals, we have Crop Over, we have Food and Rum, we have Run Barbados, and also we're partnering with a lot of other entities to bring events and sporting events and festivals here. We're looking also to create a curation of experiences, especially local experiences, because that's what people are looking for when they travel post-COVID. They want to connect to local experiences, to local people, to the community, and they want to have purpose when they travel. A working name is the Bajan Collection, but in essence, it's really something where we curate these small businesses. And that can then also be taken outside virtually, where we create this content and we engage people before they actually come here, and then invite them to join us on island physically. What's exciting about this is when we look at growth is that the winter obviously is very busy. We just experienced a very strong winter. The restaurants were full, the hotels were full, the attractions were full. You couldn't get a rental car. So I think, where we have the opportunity for growth is really in the summer. When we look at the summer, then how do we grow the summer? I think there are various opportunities that we can look at. The first thing is we can leverage the people that are already coming here, from the guests that are staying in the winter to people that come on cruise ships and may just stay a few hours and engage them to come back and have the real experience. So really, the cruise experience when they land here is just a taste, but we need to then engage them and bring them back. Another opportunity is looking at MICE, because MICE is a driver for leisure travel. People come here for a conference or seminar, but then realize that this is actually a great destination to bring their family and have a vacation. And lastly, it's really around building a data infrastructure where we can reach out, reduce our marketing cost, and increase our conversions. The minister earlier mentioned the welcome stamp. I think there are a lot of great destinations out there where you can have an incredible one-week destination in an inclusive resort. But when people want to stay longer in a destination, they need to have the aspects of safety, of education, of infrastructure, and obviously also of attractions and restaurants. With over 500 food and beverage outlets on island, and even more probably, I think this is in a very small space. It's a huge opportunity for us to leverage that. But we need to shift how we do marketing. And I think with that, we need to make sure that everyone in the destination, but also people that have visited here before, become a promoter of, of Barbados and have an incentive to reach out to make sure that they bring their networks and make Barbados known to the world. I think my time is up, but I just want to add one other thing which I believe is important and that we're already working on, and that is reaching out to the communities. Our team already has gone into the communities to each parish and have engaged with the parishes in the community to highlight some of these key events that are happening on island already. So really working together with the community and then promoting these activities that are happening, what many visitors are not aware of, and make them a platform to promote the future of tourism in Barbados. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is not my second question, but this is a follow-up, Chair, based on the very extensive response that I got from the CEO. So this is a follow-up. You did note, sir, that you would be looking at involving people, and of course that makes it even more relevant to me. And in that context, then I'm keen to hear, both from yourself and the Bridgetown Port, through the Minister, of course, what are the plans to involve the average taxi man, the average vendor, both inside and outside the port, to get tourism to the shops, have tourism in the community? My constituency is the Bayland, which is right off of, and of course it is Carlisle Bay. How do I involve, or how do you get my people involved and the average Barbadian involved in this? Because as wonderfully as that was just elucidated for all of us, unless the tourism product touches the average Barbadian, then in the minds of many people, they will not be able to make the connection between what was just said and their reality. So what is happening to ensure that the average Barbadian feels what you just articulated?
I'll ask the CEO to respond again. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. Thanks for your question. I think very relevant. I believe, as I mentioned before, that creating consumer demand and inspiring people to get off the ship, I think that's the first key, and that being done to really sharing or having people share this experience and maybe even creating this incentive program behind it. I think once people get off the boat, then the taxi operators obviously are there, right, to serve these people and bring them into these local businesses. We have done extensive training with taxi operators to make sure that not only they know about these local experiences, but also that they're versed in social media and customer service. So I think all of that, I think, is very relevant, but I think it comes down to really creating that consumer demand and inspiring people that Barbados is really a place where they can connect with local communities.
Mr. Chairman, I also asked the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Port Inc. To also speak to issues relating to taxis, and I'll come back. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. There are 255 taxi operators working through 2 co-ops in the port. We added about 40 a short while ago to expand the numbers to 255. We're also working with the Bridgetown Taxi Alliance. They have also expressed an interest in accessing the port. So we're working with the 2 associations in the port and the Taxi Alliance to have more persons doing business at the Bridgetown port. The home porting provides an opportunity for all the taxi operators and other transport providers to do business in the port. A lot of small operators operate within the port, providing those transportation services. Again, cruise tourism, attractions do very well. Retailers, restaurants, the ancillary tourism services, they all earn significant earnings, 100% in many cases, from cruise tourism. It is therefore economically vital that we continue to build on our cruise services and infrastructure, reinforcing our standing as the supporting conduit to connect local entrepreneurs directly with cruise passengers. There are a number of small operators within the Bridgetown Cruise Terminal. The port took over the management of the terminal January last year, spent significant sums upgrading the kiosks for a number of small operators and the Shuttle Village, and it's a very busy place. So we will continue to work in that direction to have more community-based, more persons from the communities involved in the cruise business.
And Mr. Chairman, if I add, the taxis operators at the Bridgetown Port is part not only of the culture, but is also part of the experience when cruise passengers arrived in Barbados. And we have to credit them for a lot of the outstanding work that they do. They work and they sell, sometimes unknowingly, to the attractions. The attractions, when they take persons on tours, when they're new attractions, the taxi operators take them. What I would like to do is to continue to remind the attractions that it is good for them not only to refresh their product, but also to engage and orient taxi operators, certainly at the seaport, on any opportunity regarding new offerings or new exciting offerings or new products that they have on display. It would certainly go a long way. What I can also say that an initiative started by my predecessor, where when we attend Sea Trade, we will have representatives from the Taxi Association. I can say to this House that that will continue. We will engage and we will ensure that the taxi operators have the opportunity to meet at Sea Trade with a number of the cruise ship operators and other persons present to continue to push their interests, because I recognize that in as much as they will have, and cruise ships as part of their revenue strategy will have shore excursions, there's also the opportunity for the taxi operators at the Bridgetown Port to participate in a more meaningful way, and obviously to do what they do best, help them, helping us to sell Barbados, sell our attractions, but recognizing that it's also their income levels, and we have to do whatever is possible to protect the income levels, because that also contributes to employment generation, and it also contributes to their sustainability, because you have the winter season, and after winter season we don't have as many ships import, and therefore it's important that we help train them, we help them to explore other opportunities to extract visitor spend, whilst at the same time having an opportunity. And I also want to make this point about the quality of taxis that we have in Barbados. The fact that we have duty-free concessions for taxi operators. We are blessed that we have an outstanding fleet of taxi operators in Barbados with high-end and quality vehicles all across Barbados. And I believe that that concession has helped them to be able to not only purchase vehicles, but also to maintain their vehicles in pristine condition. So I think that that sector continues to play a remarkable role in the Barbadian economic landscape, and that under my leadership at the ministry, that will continue. We will bring them in to discussions and through the Barbados Port Inc. And see how best we can further expand opportunities for them. But certainly, we will be inviting them to be part of the delegation to Sea Trade, which happens next month. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to the Minister and his team for the explanations. My other question is in relation to shipping and maritime. I'd like to pay homage to those who...
This is question number 2.
This is number 2.
Correct?
Yes, sir. Just so we're on the same page,
note,
sir. Thank you so kindly. This is question number 2. My other question is in relation to shipping and issues in maritime. Like I said, I'd like to pay homage to those who went before me. So I want to pay homage to the former Minister of Maritime for the brief time that he had in that office. But on a serious note, sir, I believe that, and I heard you mention it, and I'm happy to hear, Minister, the way that you speak about maritime issues, both here and in our other meetings, because I believe the greatest opportunity for transformation and growth within the tourism sector perhaps is in maritime and in shipping. And regrettably, it has been one of the most underserved areas when I look at the trajectory that we had been on, and hopefully the one that we are now seeking to reverse. And in that vein, there were a number of pieces of legislation and bills that we had discussed. I heard you mention a few, but I would like, through you, for the public to understand where we are on the Convention on the Facilitation of International Maritime Traffic, otherwise known as the FAL, and the difference that that would make to shipping, both in the port and for the country. I know there's a director of maritime who I'm sure is able to address this. And I also want to know, in relation to the seafarers legislation, where we are on that as well, because the seafarers legislation, I recall when we were having conversations with the cruise industry, it was critical to them that we had established the seafarers legislation to give them a sense of certainty, particularly in dispute resolution and so on. And of course, if we're going to be talking about it being an employer, and again, in my constituency throughout Britain Hill, throughout the Bayland, there are many people who made their living on the ocean. And so that they would get a sense as to where we are with that, and the country. So I'm particularly keen to hear where we are in relation to the FAL and the benefits that it would bring to Barbados, and in relation to where we are on the seafarers legislation and the benefits that that would bring to Barbadians.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I know that you have expert knowledge in these matters because you would have served as a minister, I believe, in the last term with that responsibility. So I know that you are pointing the question to test my knowledge of the subject matter. But I will respond. I also have with us Ms. Najla King, who is an expert in these matters, and obviously she'll be able to show us up. As you may be aware, there is a suite of legislation that we intend to bring to Parliament. Those bills are currently under review at CPC to deal with a range of maritime issues, some of which you would have started when you were minister. We also have and will have discussions with BIMAP because we recognize, as I said in my introductory remarks, that we have to have training not only for shore-based persons but seagoing training. And we had a discussion with BIMAP. They're putting together a number of courses. We're even taking those courses to the level of bachelorate, and therefore we are very serious about executing that program in the next financial year. We have made resources available in the forthcoming estimates to facilitate some of the training, and we're also getting some external assistance from one of our embassies here, our high commissions here in Barbados. I'm saying all that to say that I believe we are going to be in a position to make a number of announcements, but more importantly, we need to get the legislation to Parliament, and once we get that legislation to Parliament, it will open not only economic opportunities for us, but also there will be some level of employment, the training that we need to enhance in Barbados so we don't have to bring in foreign skills, and beyond that, it will be an opportunity for us to have the required jobs on island and off island, but doing so within the four corners of the International Maritime Organization. I can prolong my response, but I don't want to do that. I will therefore ask Ms. Najla King, who's an expert in these matters, to address those issues raised, Minister. Ms. Najla King.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. My name is Najla King. I'm the Director of Maritime Affairs. In relation to the question of Minister Humphrey regarding the legislation, let me first say that throughout the last term, we have been on a trajectory to build out a clearly defined framework for safe, secure, efficient, and economically viable shipping on clean oceans. This aligns with the mandate of the International Maritime Organization, the IMO, of which Barbados is a member state. In that regard, to facilitate trade and to ensure that Barbados benefits economically while yet not compromising the marine environment from shipping activities, a slew of shipping legislation was designed. As it relates to the Facilitation of International Maritime Traffic Act, which incorporates the Convention on Facilitation of International Maritime Traffic, when this legislation has been proclaimed for entry into force, it would make shipping more efficient in the sense that through the maritime single window, ships will be able to submit their information once to all the relevant agencies, and we will be able to clear them prior to their physical arrival in Barbados, which will enable earlier time releases for ships to do planned maintenance activities, crew changes, and other passenger tours, and also in respect of cargo ships for them to offload quickly, and there will be a faster turnaround time for them to get in and out of port. Also, the less time that ships spend idling at berth, it is less emissions generated, it is less noise impacting the marine environment, and less port congestion. Also, the convention has clearly defined all the documents that ships are to submit. So ships will know beforehand what they need to submit on arrival, pre-arrival and pre-departure, so that by the time they get here, they're pretty much processed, and the physical clearance would then be done by customs, immigration, the port, and port health to give them that final clearance and basically make it less hassle-free, and more business-friendly to do business with Barbados in that regard. As it relates to the seafarers legislation, this legislation implements two seafarer-focused conventions. That is the IMO's International Convention on the Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping for seafarers, commonly referred to as the STCW. This convention sets the minimum standards of competency for seafarers to man a ship. The safety of life at sea, security of life at sea, and protection of the marine environment really hinges on how skilled and knowledgeable and competent the crew that is manning the ship is. In addition to having competent persons man ships, you need to ensure that you protect persons who go to sea, because the ship is where they both live and work. Hence the importance of the International Labour Organization's ILO's Maritime Labour Convention, commonly referred to as the MLC. To attract and retain persons for the seagoing sector, they need to be assured that when they decide to embark on a seagoing career, that there are maritime labor protections in place, that they can still enjoy a social life and the various social benefits accruing under the MLC. It is also beneficial for Barbadians because when they go to sea, obviously they're paid in foreign currency. They remit majority of this back home, and also not the currency, but the knowledge and skills they gain as they move through various shipboard jobs as they get promoted along the way. These pieces of legislation, as Minister Gooding-Edgell would have mentioned earlier, are currently under review by the CPC, and we are working steadfastly with them to get them out expeditiously, given the importance shipping is to economic development and the great opportunity Barbados has to become a maritime hub and provide various maritime services for ships arriving to, staying in, and departing from Barbados, and eventually that will be home porting here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Minister. I have a third question, but I will not ask it now, sir. Just want to say thanks to both, to all who responded, the Minister and to the CEO of the BTMI and the Director of Maritime for their brilliant responses. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Michael South. We now move to the Honourable Member for St. John.
Thank you, Chair. Like members before me, I want to congratulate the Minister, but I'm not surprised because I was riding shotgun with him in another ministry, so I know what he's capable of doing. I have three questions, only three, sir. I would like the Minister to, there's some talk that St. Lucia and Grenada is doing better than us as it relates to us being a tourism destination. Can the Minister shed any light on this notion that St. Lucia and Grenada is doing better than us?
Thank you, Honourable Member. And as you well know, it continues to be a pleasure to work with you. And of course, we enjoy working together when we're at MTW and that forever will be etched in my memory. So thank you again for the question. Yes, this is an issue that, and I've heard some commentators and some critics put before us. What I can tell you is that in relation to Barbados' numbers, and I want to make and reiterate the point again, that we were last out of the blocks, as I would say, in respect of relaxing our COVID protocols. And there were a number of other Caribbean destinations, in fact, all of them, who opened before us and way before us. But notwithstanding that, I think that I should put to rest this nonsense argument, not supported by any facts, that Barbados appears, that these other countries appear to be doing better than Barbados. Take, for example, Barbados gets 3 times the number of tourists going to Grenada, and that's a fact. And the source, obviously, would be the CTO estimated stay-over arrivals, and that's published. We, for example, get 1.5 times more tourists than they get in Antigua and Barbuda. And certainly if you look at some of the others, it's way in excess of that. Now, I'm not saying that to put down my fellow brothers and sisters within the Caribbean, but to put into its proper perspective the understanding that Barbados will continue to grow its business. We will continue to put whatever is required in the market to sustain, including aggressive marketing strategies. But I thank you for answering the question, because there's nothing to further from the truth in respect of some of those destinations. Now, there are other destinations who will do better than us, but St. Lucia is still behind us as well, and I believe in their geographic location, they have a better opportunity of getting more airlift, because planes can go in there, turn around, and get back to the United States because of their geographic location. Whereas for us, it's maybe half an hour more than turn around to go and bank what they call return to the United States as a point of entry. But we will continue to work hard. We know, for example, that there's some jurisdictions like Antigua and Barbuda who will get like 265,000, St. Lucia 300,000 plus, St. Vincent about 57,000 or so. But there are others within the region who do better than us. And those two will be Jamaica and the Bahamas. And rightfully so, because when you look at the geographic implications, you're talking about sometimes 1 hour or sometimes less than 1 hour to land in any of those two countries, Jamaica, Bahamas and or Jamaica, to mainland United States, where there's a hub. And because of that, the costs associated with travel will be substantially lower. And oftentimes, the critics don't understand it's because of the geographic location. Can you imagine that if we were 1 hour away from the United States, what we've been capable of doing? But we don't think that that is something that we will boast about. The reality is that Barbados has held its own as a destination. It's held its own as a destination based on quality, the quality of the product, and therefore we will continue, and the quality of the Barbados brand generally, and we will continue to ensure that we do this. There are opportunities for us to take some strategic direction and some strategic initiative to enhance arrivals to Barbados, and that is what we will continue to work on. So I thank you for asking the question, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Minister. That is a nice segue into my next question. I'm not sure if you answered this, but what are some of the new initiatives to increase arrivals?
Yes, I can rehash some of them. We have to, airlift remains the solution to increase arrival numbers into Barbados. Airlift oftentimes is reflected on multiple arrangements. You have a situation where the airline industry has rebounded, I think, and they're doing very well. And therefore, they have also presented to us that there are a number of issues associated with getting additional airlift into Barbados. They made it clear to us that during the COVID period, they had a number of persons who would have retired or who would have left their jobs. For example, there are pilots and other persons who would have retired. And they make the point that one of the challenges that they're encountering is a human resource challenge, trying to get enough resources, especially pilots and so on, to fly aircraft globally. And their revenue management teams have done, credit to them, an outstanding job in ramping up and managing their revenue targets in order to increase the cost. Now, we have to monitor this very carefully. And that's why I said earlier that we're going to have to go and have planned meetings to meet with a number of carriers to ensure that the price of an airline ticket to Barbados does not become too exorbitant that would then cause us a problem in terms of persons willing to travel to this destination. It is what it is, but we have to get in there and have those kinds of discussions, because if we don't, then we run the risk that our tourism numbers could probably decline, and we don't want to have that scenario. The strategy of getting more airlift is one that we are very focused on. There are a number of initiatives that will be coming on stream. We have to ensure that with airlift, that we have consistency, and like I indicated earlier, what we have to do is some of the carriers that are currently operating into Barbados on a seasonal basis, we have to find the correct approach to ensure we can encourage them to come to Barbados year-round, and that would definitely help. So arrivals, top of the mind, and we are going to focus not only out of the United States, UK, and we have some other announcements that we'll make later on in respect of additional airlift into Barbados that the BTMI team is currently working on. So I remain confident, I'm optimistic, but we have to get in there, and it requires, regrettably, always that in-your-face approach with the airline industry as it does with the cruise sector to ensure that we increase airlift into Barbados. The Permanent Secretary wishes to add to my comments as well. Yes?
Thank you, Minister. One of the things that we're also focused on in the ministry to bolster airlift is to do...
Yes, before you move on,
My apologies, sir. My name is Francine Blackman, and I'm the Permanent Secretary within the Ministry of Tourism and International Transport. I wanted to add a bit more to what Minister has indicated, and I wanted to show also the marriage between aviation and tourism, and the steps that we are taking in the ministry to make sure that we cement that marriage. I think before the focus has been more on the tourism side and not so much on the aviation side. But we've recognized that certainly tourism, we can grow that so much without making sure that we, on the other hand, have the environment in place for our aviation side to also grow. And we are doing that and tackling that through the recent establishment of the Civil Aviation Authority. We recognize that in Barbados, that now provides us with an opportunity to go outside of our normal remit, which we would normally engage with our legacy carriers. That now provides us with an opportunity to bring new additional airlines to Barbados that, once we are able to build the demand in the market, allows us to grow the tourism business again through that aspect. So the focus in the ministry is not only now to build airlift through simply engaging with our legacy carriers such as American Airlines and British Airways and so on, and developing new markets that they fly to, but also to be able to attract new airlines to the country by using the arsenal that we now have, which is the Civil Aviation Authority, and to have that running and executing well, that would then serve us to build additional airlines in that area. So I just wanted to add that to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. My final question, Minister, is related to, can you say if there are any adjustments to the head tax for cruise passengers? My third question is, Chair.
So noted, Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Yes, I can confirm that the what you call the head tax for cruise passengers into Barbados, that will be increased. We would have agreed that the rate should move from $6 to $12. That increase, I might add, we've had, when I checked, we've not had an increase for almost 3 decades. And we met last January with all the cruise executives in Florida. We did a presentation. We explained to them why we were making the change. They understood. And truth be told, I don't think they could have argued with us in the sense that we've not had an increase in the head tax in almost 3 decades. The head tax is effective November of 2024. And the reason why we did that as good and responsible government was to give them enough notice. As you're aware, the cruise ships have to, some of them, especially coming out of the US, have to show the tax, and therefore allow them enough time to plan and add the tax to their future schedules. Those meetings, I can report to this House, went well. The operators still believe in Barbados. They believe there's a high priority destination for us. As I indicated earlier, we are working with them to see if we can get some smaller cruise ships into Barbados, notwithstanding its geographic location. I must also say that when we were there, they complimented not only the former Minister of Tourism, the Honourable Lisa Cummins, but they also thanked the Prime Minister of Barbados and the government and people of Barbados for allowing them to utilize and have safe harbor in Barbados during the COVID-19 period. And they certainly, and the Permanent Secretary is here to confirm that, because I can't mislead the House and others who were on that trip. But they were very appreciative of Barbados's contribution and the fact that Barbados played a critical role in getting a lot of their crews out of Barbados to their homeland. So they did convey that to us, and I thought, as they would have done, I think, as you raised the question, I think it's only fitting that they do convey that to this House and to the country. So we will continue to build on that relationship. I think they recognize that Barbados has to hold a special place in their hearts because of what we did at the time. And therefore, we are going to leverage those relationships by being in their face constantly and encouraging them. Cruise is becoming a competitive business. There are destinations that hitherto would not have been on a cruise itinerary, and they're now on a cruise itinerary. But the cashier for us is that when they look at their numbers, Barbados still remains as one major cruise line, indicated to us that Barbados is within their top 3 destinations. We had to get it out to them, but we did get it out to them. So I remain confident. There's still a lot of hard work. I'm not going to give this House the view that you know, it's not. This is a lot of hard work. It keeps me very busy. Sometimes it keeps me out of my constituency for too long too. But I will do whatever is necessary in my role to help build out the sector. Thank you, Minister.
Is this a follow-up question, Honourable Member?
More so a statement, Chair, than a follow-up question. Minister, only recently at one of my meetings, an idea was thrown out about the possibility of having a road tennis court on some of these cruise ships. I was told, I've not been on any so far, but I'm told that there's space, and one of my officers will be in contact with one of your officers as it relates to exploring the possibility of having road tennis as one of the games on the cruise ship. So this is something that is coming down the pipeline. Thank you.
Sure. Happy to do that for you. During our next engagement, I believe in Sea Trade in March, I will obviously raise that issue and see how best we can get that top of the mind with the executives within the cruise sector. I also want to say, and perhaps the Chief Executive Officer of the BTM can address this, but the Barbados Tourism and Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. has also been, to help you, sponsoring some events, and as a result of our sponsorship of that event, on, I believe it was ESPN and affiliated channels. The Barbados brand has also received significant exposure, as well as the road tennis. I'm not sure if the Chief Executive Officer of the BTMI would wish to add to that comment. Mr. Jens Trainhardt.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, to your point, so we have sponsored and partnered with various entities when it comes to sporting events. And road tennis is obviously an indigenous sport here, which also just recently had some great coverage with some top tennis players, which went viral all over the world. So I agree with you, Honourable Member, if road tennis courts were to be installed at cruise ships, that would further the exposure of Barbados, but not just the exposure, but also the engagement, inviting people to come here and experience it for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member for St. John. Honourable Member for St. Thomas.
Thank you very much. I want to express my gratitude to the Honourable Minister and his team for their presentations this morning, and I'm feeling happy to be able to see the kind of progress that has been made. I would just want, sir, to start with the smallest query and then go to the most important one where I am concerned. And I just want to indicate that we made a request for the BTMI since 2012. When we look at tourism in Barbados, rural Barbados offers a lot as well. It's not only the beaches, but we have the beauty in the parish of St. Thomas. We call it the heart of Barbados. And I would wish to find out what assistance could be offered, having tried for so long and not gotten any assistance in relation to the large numbers of visitors and the locals who visit Mount Hillaby, the highest point in the island and the most pristine view that you could ever have, and it's bordering the Honourable Member for St. Andrew and myself. And I really believe that for the large numbers of visitors and locals who make the trips and the treks there, really deserve to have what I consider something simple, a washroom facility. Because when they go down to the West Coast, or when they go to wherever and they end up at that location, there's absolutely not even a pipe. And I'm only asking for something small, and I didn't think that I should really have to come to this today, but it really bothers my heart because almost everybody who goes there says there isn't a washroom facility for us to be able to access that kind of assistance. And I'd like to request, sir, that it is included somewhere or enshrined somewhere in these estimates so that the persons who will go to even earthworks or down the West Coast and the view, or come from wherever, that at least there is somewhere where they can have a meal and wash their hands. The locals are always there. They do their hikes and they congregate there, and there's absolutely nothing in place. And I think that that is critical to be able to help us with our interior component of tourism that takes place in the center and on the borders that will be on the center of the island, particularly St. Thomas. And I would just wish to get a response on that, please, from the Honourable Minister and his team.
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Honourable Member, for your observations. Very good observations, I might add. I do agree with you that there is a need for more tourist attractions in Barbados. It's one of the areas that when I came to the office, I recognized that we could do better, and therefore there's growth, and therefore thanks for highlighting that particular area. What we will do is that there is a product assessments committee, and they do what we refer to as product assessment audits. And what I'll be happy to do is I'll invite Ms. Lana Hayward back to comment. But what I can assure you is that in respect of that, that will now become a high priority item for me. I've taken note of it. The product assessment teams would normally go into the community, make an assessment of a number of factors that Ms. Harewood will speak to,
But I also believe that it's an opportunity to also look at the site and see how best we can make it more attractive as we build out additional tourist attractions. I'll ask, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Lana Hayward to speak to the issue of product quality assessments. Ms. Hayward.
Thank you, Minister. The Product Quality Unit does do some product assessment audits, and what the focus of those audits, we go into communities and assess areas that are frequently visited by visitors. So I've taken a note of it, and we will do an audit of that area. What we do is we have, that committee is the Tourism Improvement Coalition. It is made up of a number of regulatory agencies, SSA, Ministry of Health, Fire Service. So we have various bodies going on those audits to assess the areas that would fall under their remit. And we also have, in line with that, the tourism infrastructural improvements. So coming out of those audits, we identify areas of concern, as you stated, Minister Ford, and what we seek to do is to address them, to ensure that the guest experience is enhanced. So we definitely will do an audit of the area. Thank you.
Thank you. My second question, sir, is I have not seen it in the brief. I've been trying to read so many of them. But this one is associated with a Barbadian whom I met just about 3 weeks ago. And a number of persons have been asking and making queries about the Concorde. He has got quite some experience in engaging in it, and I've already sent off a request to someone in the government sector to deal with it. But what are the plans for the Concorde at this time? Because I recognize that it was a very popular location. Barbadians flock there to have all the entertainment and so on. And over the years we've seen, and I know that we have gone through a serious recession, but I just want to make that query so that I can communicate with him and him with the respective individual in the government to see how best we can work with it, even if we have to get funding from overseas. Funding meaning now, funding that will support us with also us having to foot the bill here, because I know a number of agencies internationally will want to give some kind of assistance to that, sir. So I just want to get a response if there's any plan afoot.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Yes, I can confirm. I have had discussions with the Grantley Adams International Airport and with the BTMI. As I understood it, there was a lease arrangement which expired. We are now working to bring that back, considering that the Concorde will be celebrating its anniversary, I believe it's its 30th anniversary, subject to correction, in Barbados. And therefore, the board of the Grantley Adams International Airport and BTMI have been challenged to come up with a defined experience in order to build out. Now, there's several opportunities, if I were to put on my commercial hat, where I think we can build out that. We have not only the visitor experience in itself, but we also have an opportunity where there are persons checking out of a hotel room at midday who would wish to have a location where they can go stay and relax until they take their plane. And that is an opportunity as well that we should be focusing on. We also have, as we move the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. to a public PPP arrangement, that's additional opportunity where they could derive a source of monthly income to continue to support their operations. So it's top of the mind. I have discussed it with both boards. They are going to come back to us with a plan of action, but I honestly think that an opportunity rests with especially the BTMI to incorporate that as part of an airport arrangement on a PPP basis to shore up additional revenues in the future as we transition the BTMI off the revenues from the general passenger service tax. Thank you.
with. And the second component, I thought my voice was big enough. I'm sorry, I tried it. The second component to this question, sir, is the geotechnical report. This is now 5 years almost, and we're still waiting because some of the residents are really very uncomfortable. And with all the good efforts that would have been put in place to help to strengthen Allen View and what has been happening there, we did not get anything from the Housing Neighborhood Unit to assist them with what they had to do with the sewage and all that. Many of them still want to stay there, but they cannot expand, they can't build, they can't do anything new. And therefore, I would wish to know about the costs that are available to those homeowners property owners who await compensation as the respect of that. And then that geotechnical report that I know COVID would have put a tailspin in us in 2018-19 when there were plans to meet with the community and all that. But it is so long overdue, and the residents are asking questions. And to even make a terrible situation worse, they want to move some of them. They have the land, but they can't develop, and they're waiting. I know government has put forward an initiative for them to be able to be transferred, but there's still little or no action there. And every day there's some kind of query. They're uncomfortable because of the report from the geotechnical team to be able to let them know they're living in a safer place than what had been even espoused here in this honorable chamber by another minister who had driven the fear of the devil in the hearts of those residents. So I would wish to know, sir, when we can get resolution on that aspect of the geotechnical report and to be able to meet with the residents, at least to say something to them, to help to whip up their spirits because they are concerned. If you're talking about an area that is for, they cannot build, they cannot do whatever, then they want to know how can we go on with our lives. And I'm happy to see there are other comments in the brief that help to strengthen my concern so that it can then be reported to them. Yes, the government, the institutions have your interests at heart, but they don't want to be living and hoping. It is about time that we get word, particularly about that geotechnical or geophysical report where people are living in fear because of what the Honourable Minister said, I said earlier, that drove the fear in their hearts, the devil in their hearts, as to whether the cave will collapse or not. It really is uncomfortable, and I would wish for the Honourable Member here, the Honourable Minister with his dynamic team, just to give me a little word so that I can go in and help to inspire them that plans are afoot and the reports will be given to them in due time, sir. And I wish to thank you all for your sharing of information.
Thank you, Honourable Member. First of all, in the order, as you presented your points, Harson's Cave, Chukka, which is the management company working on behalf of Harson's Caves of Barbados Limited, continue to do very well. I think you know the constituency better than I know, and you know that everything that goes on in there, and you will see the number of taxis and buses that are transporting persons to that. In fact, I believe it's next Monday. that the Chukka will be announcing another element of the attractions within the Caves of Barbados compound. And I believe that's scheduled for next Monday. So I just wanted to give you an update in respect of how that's going, Chukka. Respect to pensions and gratuities, I read a minute from the board, Caves of Barbados board, and they were getting additional expertise to expedite this matter. We also have the manager of the caves here, and I will ask her to specifically address that issue. In respect of the geotechnical report, I can confirm that there is provision within the forthcoming year's estimates to address that matter, but I will also ask the permanent secretary to elaborate on the matter of the geotechnical report. I'll start with the permanent secretary, and then I'll invite the manager of the Caves of Barbados to also speak to this. I might also add that the government has also made provision within this year's estimates for the final payment to complete the loan, the Caribbean Development Bank loan. That will be completed in January of next year, and therefore the cave will now have an opportunity not only as they're receiving their fees from Chukka, but they will also have an opportunity to start expanding into other areas in order to help the government and certainly the ministry build out additional attractions. I just thought I'll put that into the record. But I'll ask my permanent secretary to speak to the geotechnical report and then the manager of the case to address any other issues, including the pension and gratuities issue. Yes.
Thank you, Minister. Regarding the geotechnical survey, we do know that that work has been long in coming. It has been interrupted, certainly with the matters and issues related around COVID. But I can report today to indicate that that work has started and actually is expected to conclude next year. And from that presentation of the report, the ministry, as well as the Ministry of Housing and Lands, would have a better idea as to the costs associated with the relocation of the residents there who may be impacted as a result. And so we await the conclusion of that report, but I also asked Ms. Elna Carlisle to provide further input here at this point. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Eleanor Carroll, manager of Caves of Barbados Limited, and I'll answer the query regarding the pensions first. We were waiting the approval of the Financial Services Commission, which we received January 23rd. So the next step was for the company and the trustees to agree to the service provider to do the wind-up services for the pensioners. Of the group, there were 60 members who were severed to facilitate the management agreement with Chukka. Of those 60 members, most of them are below the age of 60, so they wouldn't actually receive cash payments. They would receive an annuity, which they would then have to agree with an annuity provider, and they will become eligible for pensions at age 60. The members who are 60 and over, five of them in total as of today would have requested early retirement, and then they are the ones who would be eligible for cash payments. As soon as the service provider, ECLA, facilitates the final arrangements, what would happen is that option letters would be sent to the pensioners for them to select the options that are available to them under the OPBA, which is the Occupational Pension and Benefits Act. So we expect to meet with ECLA and the trustees shortly, but ECLA indicated to us that the wind-up process can take between 2 to 3 months following the approval of the FSC. So shortly, option letters should go out, and then a meeting would be held with all the members to explain the options and the implications of the various options. So that is where we're at regarding the pensions. The second query related to the geotechnical study. We are happy to report that there has been a lot of progress recently. The equipment was shipped by the sub-consultants, formerly Golda, now WSP Canada. The equipment is expected to arrive in March. As soon as it is on island, the sub-consultants, headed by the lead consultant, Mahi Ridley Hazard, will conduct the field work in the Allenview community for the stability study, structural stability study. That study, the entire study, is expected to end at the end of September of this year, and the output of that study will then inform the Ministry of Housing regarding the relocation and what members in the community can do. The lead consultant, Mahi Ridley Hazard, Gregory Hazard. He is putting together a team to liaise with MP Ford to then decide how they will do. You will advise them how best you wish them to inform the community. Well, you have it down pat. There is nobody else in St. Thomas who knows your constituency better than you, right? Right? So they will liaise with you shortly to do that walkthrough. So that's where we're at. We're finally at a stage where we can have the involvement with the community. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just as I spoke about the Concord, so it's 20 years. They'll be celebrating 20 years on November the 17th. And it was also drawn to my attention, in fact, there's an intended site visit to the facility tomorrow. So I just thought I will just let the House know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Honourable Member for St. Thomas. Honourable Member for St. Michael West.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Minister and team. I would like to join in the chorus of my colleagues as it pertains to the performance of the tourism sector for 2022. I think that your ministry has positioned this island to take full advantage of the opening of the global tourism market. But I don't think we have the luxury to pat ourselves on the back too much, specifically because of an article I read in The Economist that the new certainty is uncertainty. So we know from this year that projections for the global economic, for the global economy are down. We can see in the US market specifically that the tech sector has laid off a number of people, big tech firms like Google and Amazon and Microsoft. And then in the UK market, obviously, there's pressure on the pound. So my question to you is, how are we going to prepare this economy for the shocks that we expect, especially in the summer, for the summer market? The chairman of the BATA has been recorded in the media recently as saying that the hoteliers are very concerned about the summer numbers. And as I mentioned before, with the pressure on the British pound, what strategies do you expect to put in place just in case, well, if the pound is weaker, then you would expect that spend might be under pressure as well. So what strategies are you going to employ to mitigate these? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I'll just go back to the preliminary forecasts. What I'm seeing, and I appreciate that newspapers and other media will have their comments. Certainly when we see what is happening in the international community, we were recently in Saudi Arabia, and the forecast that I got from the global leaders, and the chief executive officer of the BTM is here, and he would have to speak to this as well, is that there is substantial pent-up demand. And if you look certainly in the briefing document, you will see that travel in 2022, based on the UN WTO's assessment, which was published in 2022, would have shown that over 900 million tourists traveled internationally in 2022, which is twice as much that traveled in 2021. The forecasts from not only those in the international travel community, but certainly people who invest in hotels and aviation, they are beginning to see what they think is perhaps the most significant rebound in travel they call it pent-up demand, and that people are now exercising the use of discretionary income to travel, perhaps because of the mental stress associated with COVID, and perhaps the reality that, look, you know, I don't know if I'll be around another couple of years, so let me get out there and enjoy my life and travel. Certainly, when you look to the aviation and the aviation stacks that we get within the BTMI, it suggests that the demand for travel is significant. The problem is that there's a coping issue that we don't have, that the airlines tell us they don't have enough resources to put, they have the aircraft, but they don't have enough resources to fly those aircraft or to accommodate those aircraft. And therefore, that is where you've seen where the airline industry is making a bounty because they have put their revenue managers to work, and their revenue managers are maximizing the benefit. It is a work in progress. I understand what you're saying in respect of the international market, but at a preliminary level, based on what we're seeing now, things can change tomorrow. I believe that the world market suggests that there is going to be a rebound, and that's why I made the point earlier that we will have internally within the BTMI to become more aggressive with our marketing efforts, and particularly drive the US and Canadian markets harder in order for us to get that. Obviously, that is to achieve that, you have to have some required airlift, and that's what we are working on. In respect of the summer business and comments on summer business, I would have indicated in my presentation earlier, when I look at the stacks, I was trying to remember it off my head, but I don't want to run the risk of misleading the House. But I did indicate that the summer business, based on market performances, appears to be, there is an increase. We are seeing an increase in the levels, the numbers that we are accommodating. I did indicate, for example, that Forward Keys, in my opening remarks, which is the data analytics company for the BTMI, that airline bookings for the summer, which is what we call the May to October period, 2023, as of February the 5th, which was a couple of days ago, bookings stood at 34,368. For the same period, comparative period in 2022, there were 26,674 bookings. So thus far, when I say thus far, as of February the 5th, we have had an increase in 29% in the summer bookings, and that is tickets sold. And that comes directly from IATA. Has nothing to do with the Caribbean, because they've not captured the Caribbean in that data. Now, I'm not saying that to say that all is well, far from. What I'm saying is that we are going to have to redouble our efforts, and I've already communicated that message to the BTMI board and chair and the leadership to ensure that they increase summer business to Barbados. We also have some challenges that we're going to have to work out, because we also know that there are different and varying accommodation sectors in Barbados. And whilst the hotels might say that they're not seeing the pickup that they expect, the other reality is that you have the villa market that is showing remarkable resilience, and that they're trending very well. And that's not to take away, because we have to look at the whole. I also made the point that we do not market to a wall. And therefore, what is incumbent, and this is what I've asked the BTMI, the BHTA to do, is to supply the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. with their occupancy statistics. We don't want their revenue. We can calculate it. If I want it, I can do it. But we don't want the revenue. What we want is for them to tell us where you are today versus where you are at the same time last year, is what we define as pacing. So if we understand how they are pacing, then, and the markets that they believe that they're down, and we could then take the proactive and aggressive marketing responses that are required to fill the destination. So that's what we're doing. It's a matter of airlift. I can also tell you that the Canadian and UK and US markets are actively in discussions with the airlines, their partners, to see how best we can come up with additional strategies. That's a work in progress. I'm not at liberty to disclose it. Maybe the CEO BTMI can add some more, but I can't go too far because it's at a delicate stage in terms of discussion, and some of the programs that they have put in the summer. Now, we've also, in my opening remarks, I set out to tell you exactly what we're doing for the summer.
not only crop over, not only Love Island that will bring us tremendous benefits, not only the Sol Rally, not only the CHT that will be here in Barbados, not only FinTech that will come again. So I listed all of those to say these are but some of the activities that they have the BTMI have initiated in the market to drive additional summer business. And we're going to continue to work with all partners in all sectors. The BHTA also sits on the board of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Marketing Inc. And they also have a greater insight, perhaps even of me as minister, because they're in the action. But I said all of that to say it is not where it ought to be. We're going to have to push, and we're going to push hard, because we understand the value of tourism to Barbados and to the economy and to all the workers involved in tourism. In respect of the British pound, when I was in the UK for World Travel Market last November, that was a major concern to us, because we wanted to see how the economics would play out. Thankfully, and touch wood, we are not seeing any decline. In fact, when I made my opening remarks, you will see that of all the major source markets, the United Kingdom is back on track, and we are now realizing growth compared to pre-pandemic levels. So that market, we believe, even though there's some concerns. The other thing that when we were at WTM, that the wholesalers and the operators told us that Barbados is still their favorite destination. And the fact that we came out, we reopened late, they understood, but that Barbados will get back there. So we will monitor the situation. We will necessarily implement whatever tactics are required, whether it's you're purchasing US dollars, the vacation, or you're purchasing British pounds or euros, whatever. We will analyze the situation and give you that assurance, and obviously take the appropriate corrective measures required to adjust so we can protect Barbados as a destination. Thank you. I'm not sure if the Mr. Jens Strenhardt would wish to add anything to my comments.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you for the question, Honourable Member. I actually love this question, because I think the biggest opportunity that Barbados has is the summer. I mentioned earlier that, by repositioning the island from beach only to modern beaches, I think we open ourselves up to really differentiate Barbados from other Caribbean and even global beach destinations, almost like as the place to be. And why the place to be is because this is where we have the festivals, the events, sporting, but also food and beverage. So all of that together, that existing infrastructure, and then adding other partnerships to it, make us and position us in a way that I think it's very hard to match for other destinations. I think one point that's important to point out is that, in order to develop airlift, we need to always look at sustainable airlift, because we don't want to just add airlift and look at minimum revenue guarantees, because as we have seen, a flight can go away in a matter of days. So I think sustainable airlift is important, and we can do that by marketing. We're doing that already very actively in the US and other markets, to go behind the gateway, to make sure that we have a big foundation of demand that can protect our existing airlift and grow new airlift. When you talk about resilience, I mentioned before in my intervention that I believe resilience is created via inclusivity, really making sure that we can stretch the tourism dollar, and that everyone can be part of the tourism ecosystem. In fact, I wrote my doctorate thesis on this, and I think through research we're able actually to prove validity to that statement. The last thing I want to mention is public-private partnerships. And actually, we have Mr. Harris here in the room, and we've created a public-private partnership, which I think is unique and innovative globally with Book Barbados, to make sure that we can facilitate the demand of travelers that we are able to inspire to actually then book as well. And why is Book Barbados so unique versus other online travel agencies? Because they actually can go into the communities and have local product that it's very hard for other online travel agencies, Expedia, Booking, Agoda, and they're all great companies to really bring to the forefront. With that, I want to thank our market directors, because I think one reason for our success is that what our market teams do in the market, in our key source markets, is to really build these relationships day on, day out. They're with the airlines, with the tour operators, and that is something that sometimes is forgotten, but is very important because not every destination has that luxury to do that. And I also want to thank our product team for going out there and working with our operators, even with the small businesses, to make sure that we create experiences that are creative, but also on the same account build capacity to make sure that these businesses and experiences are market ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister and CEO. I fully buy into what you're saying, Minister, that the pent-up demand for tourism globally will drive our summer market, but specifically as it pertains to community tourism. Ironically, I believe that the fact that, specifically when you talk about the UK tourists, they want to come to Barbados. Yes, their spending power is reduced, but they will find ways to come and enjoy our product. I see it via the Airbnbs and the tourists that are staying in guest houses, the tourists that are going up to Popular to shop, you know, they're catching ZRs. Sometimes they look like they're hiking along the highway. So they love Barbados and they want to experience Barbados like a Bajan. And I'm aware that the global trend for tourism is tourists want to experience culture and they want to feel as though they're part of the community. So maybe it's happening somewhat organically that, you know, we should be all right during the summer months. But this leads me to my second question. Since we're seeing a lot more tourists living like Bajans, going to Popular, sometimes I see them walking through Baxter's Road 9, 10 o'clock at night. How are we measuring the experiences that these tourists are having in these non-traditional ways that we may not have mechanisms in place to be able to gauge experiences? And also because tourists are living more like Bajans, they're obviously going to interact with our infrastructure like we do. So they may have complaints, they may air their issues on TripAdvisor. What strategies and mechanisms do we have in place to be able to get this feedback?
Thank you very much. I'll ask as well the Ms. Lana Harewood, who has done extensive work in this area, as well as if the CEO wants to chip in again. But what I can tell you regarding the feedback is that there is a apparatus within the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. that gets a lot of the complaints and or compliments from tourists on the island. They have a filtering system. It informs us how, in the ministry, how best we can help strengthen the product and areas that we need to initiate, included what we would have discussed earlier, the whole issue of assessment and audits to help build out our facilities. That is going well, and I will ask Ms. Harewood to address that specific point. In respect of community tourism, there's no better, I think the word that is being used now, and the CEO can confirm this, is the whole issue of sustainability. Travel trends now indicate that people want to come to a destination and they want to do so based on sustainability. So there's a huge opportunity for us to take tourism into the community. We have aspects of it already, and we have to build out, similar to what the Honourable Member Sir Thomas would have spoken to the Hillaby experience, but we have to build it out. But we have to do the build out in such a way that we can convert that into a wonderful experience and a brilliant attraction. Oistins has earned its name over time because of sustainability. The fact that tourists want to go, interact, they want to support the fishermen, they want to support the vendors, they want to support the caterers, they want to support the bars, because they understand that. And that is a trend that has developed. I think it's relatively new, where people are trending based on all the market research that we're seeing. People want to travel for sustainability reasons. There's also a segment in the environment as well. And therefore, we are pushing on with what we have to do in respect of opening up additional attractions within communities. If we can open up attractions in communities, it not only provides an attraction, but it also provides an opportunity for employment in the area, small business persons to sell their craft, to have traditional Barbadian dish or food and beverage, and set it up in such a way that reflects Barbados, and to offer what tourists like to come here for, in addition to other factors, the warmth of our people. So we are going to be working on that in respect of sustainability. We are also, in terms of the earlier point, and I want to go back to your previous questions just briefly, the issue with summer bookings as well has to do with the booking window. And people and all persons involved in the business would tell you that the booking window has changed. It has become shorter. And as a result of that, you have to put the required tactics in place to address that as well. So the booking window is shorter, so you might have a hotel or an establishment that have 50% occupancy on the books today, but then within another 2 or 3 months leading to summer, they may have moved by maybe 10, 12 percentage points because of the booking window. And that's why I made the point earlier that we have to look at this whole issue of pacing. The other issue as well is our segue into the Gulf states. You know that summer in those areas is a really, really hot summer. And that presents an opportunity for them. They go to the UK, they go to Paris, they go to the United States. And what we have been, based on our preliminary information, what we are seeking to do is to try to to get some of those travelers from the Gulf states who go into those jurisdictions to come to Barbados, particularly the younger ones. And as you would well appreciate, when those persons in the Gulf, when they travel with an entourage. And we are making, I think, reasonable progress on the ground. That's why I made the point in my opening remarks that we need to get into some of these new and emerging markets. It's not going to happen overnight, not by any stretch of the imagination. It will take some time to build. But once we get in there and build the market, get the Barbados brand out there, we believe that we can start to see some results, gradual results, which would then help us to accomplish the overall objective. I'll defer now to Ms. Lana Harewood, and if the CEO, Ms. Ian Strayhart, wants to comment. Ms. Harewood.
Thank you, Minister. I would have mentioned before that under the product quality unit, there is a committee, the Tourism Improvement Coalition, and complaints that come into our department. As I stated, there are various regulatory stakeholders that sit on that coalition. I mentioned the Ministry of Health and Wellness. We also have the SSA, Barbados Police Service is another stakeholder. So depending on the nature of the actual complaint as it comes in, it's recorded within the product quality unit, but it's also forwarded on to the necessary entity for assistance to have corrective action as well. So that's how we handle those situations. But complaints are also, I should also add that complaints are also received by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. as well. So depending on the nature of it, is either handled by us or the BTMI. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Member, I thank you very much for this great question. I believe really, as you talked about creating Bajan experiences and have visitors feel like a Bajan, it's almost like you create a sense of belonging. You can either be Bajan by birth or Bajan by choice. And if you're Bajan by choice, you enter this community as you not just be a tourist and a visitor, but you actually, it's bigger than that. And I guess in the end, tourism starts at home. So I think when local people, real Bajans, are enjoying the destination, then visitors want to partake. And so I think there is a huge opportunity for us to create something bigger than just bringing tourists to the island. You talked about the issue of measuring these activities. How can we measure when people frequent these local experiences? So this is where we would move into digital transformation, and where we're, through the IDB and the project execution unit at the ministry, looking to build an innovative mobile application which allows a visitor and residents alike to connect with local businesses. So in one hand, it almost becomes a marketplace, and we become a connector between these businesses or I would call them experience providers and consumers, visitors and residents. And businesses can then kind of provide offers and deals, and consumers can get access to these benefits. And with that then, when people valid or take advantage of these deals and offers, through then scanning QR codes, we get then information and data that allows us not only to see what the local and the economic impact is, but also what the visitor flow is, because that's another issue where we can then actually manage the destination better and see, where are maybe some overcrowding that might degrade the experience of a visitor at a certain attraction or so on, right? So it's a bigger topic, but I just wanted to raise that. I think I thank your question, and I think there's a huge opportunity for us. When it comes to customer service and payment issues, there's obviously some issues, especially with small businesses. On the payment side, as I mentioned before, we're partnering with Book Barbados to enable payment to these small businesses. On the customer service side, however, now through the advent of artificial intelligence and ChatGPT is in everyone's mouth now, there's also an opportunity to now position the destination through technology, through artificial intelligence, as a customer-centric, service-oriented destination. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members for St. Michael West, we are aware you have one more question. We're asking you to hold, as all others who have indicated they wish to speak, as we're going to break now, and we will start back in the same order which we have here indicated.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do now report progress to His Honor the Speaker, and beg leave to sit again.
Beg the second.
The question is that I now report progress to His Honor the Speaker and ask for leave to sit again. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman has reported progress and asks for leave to sit again. Honourable Leader, Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 2:20 p.m.
Beg the second that.
The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 2:20 p.m. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands suspended until 2:20 p.m.